Hello, planet Earth. Okay, it's the hopefully one day famous Nick Dutch here yet again. Going to talk to you today about demonology, which is again a very misunderstood subject. Alright. The occult schools of thought suggest that there's certain rituals which are needed for the purposes of evoking demons or invoking demons. And yeah, I think that there must be some verity or some rationale to that. Everything that happens within a circle which is being cast, if it is done emotionally and in the right way, just as Aleister Crowley said, inflame thyself with prayer, in that kind of reverent but powerful state of mind that comes when you do an awful lot of your prayer and meditation, seems to, at times, affect the outside world. Whether there is an actual objective spirit entity which you can call a demon, which then walks out on its little spirit legs and goes and does things, or whether it is the influence of the meaning of everything that's happened, all the theatricals that's happened in the circle, when you're in that inflamed, prayerful, meditative state, is open for debate. It seems at times that yes, the spirit does exist and does seem to create an influence within the circle, and at times outside of the circle to the people or situations which are trying to influence as a direct result of the actual magical work itself. The demonology aspect of magic is regarded as being an aggressive discipline, and for good reason. There are two main ways in which demonology can be done. One is the undesirable way, in which you actually sell some aspect of your life or your soul to the spirit entity, and the other one is that with a feeling of spiritual authority that comes from reverence of or worship of a divine being, you feel that you can actually control the spiritual entity. The Lesser Key of Solomon is probably the most well-known book of ceremonial magic which deals with demonology, and there are 72 spirits mentioned there. Each of them have their own little symbols which are relatively easy to draw. The fact that the symbols are relatively easy to draw suggests that there's nothing to stop you from creating your own demon sigil by using the sigillation techniques mentioned by Peter J. Carroll in Liber Null and Psychonaut, and expanded upon in Liber Chaos, and also by the works of Phil Hine in Prime Chaos. So you got to think about the nature of what creatures you're creating. Remember, it's still a fantasy world, but it's a very strong fantasy world which you're then sending out at a moment of climax to go and do something. The mentality of the angelic beings, I've already mentioned, they're very high, they're very superior. All they tend to do as far as giving you help and assistance is concerned is to say, you chose what you're going through. You're here to learn things. That's more or less as far as it goes. You cannot convince an angel, just as Aleister Crowley said, in Magic in Theory and Practice. But when you're dealing with a lower level entity, it has the mentality of something which is mischievous, something which is naughty, something which enjoys taunting, something which enjoys making people afraid. So if you can then use that, alright, you've got to understand the psychology of the spirit that you're working with. That's where the angels are, that's where you are. If you want to do divination, you've got to do something more or less at your level. So maybe a shade of the dead, or maybe the spirit of another living, the spirit of someone who is alive, but is actually projected into your circle, or has been summoned into your circle, could be more useful. Or another spirit of the same, more or less the same level that you are, but of a rank and type which is best suited for that variety of divination through ritual magic. However, if you're going to choose a demon level, that's something smaller, okay? Think about the mentality of a really naughty, screwed up, delinquent child, with sexual hang-ups, psychological hang-ups, emotional hang-ups, and all the rest of it. Completely twisted little bastard who wants to go out causing hell. That's the mentality of a demon entity. And that kind of character needs to be controlled by symbols, again, which you create, which are supposed to have an influence upon the demon's mentality. It's got to be a level of authority that the demon entity would have some kind of respect for. It's got to be of a source that the demon entity would like to become a part of. So you're promising the demon entity that it will be either incorporated back into yourself, because the demon possibly comes from yourself or comes from some aspects of your own deep, primitive, reptilian mind, in theory, or comes from some similar experience which is happening on the face of the planet, alright, or some particular type of person or type of creature. If you look at the psychological development of chimpanzees, for instance, they stop at a certain level, but for the human child carries on from that level and grows further because of the cranial development. So essentially you're choosing something with the mischievous nature of maybe a chimpanzee or one of the other great apes. Think about it: instinctive, craving sex, craving violence, craving crime, craving drug abuse. Think about that kind of mentality, and that's what you're creating. If I digress from this subject for a moment and move away from the idea of creating your own demons, if you were to refer back to the Lesser Key of Solomon, as I said, you got 72 spirits there. All of them are in fact chaos magic sigils. They've been designed based upon the numerical squares that you see in transcendental magic, based upon the 7 planets, and based upon lots of other numerical squares as well. That's why there's little circles, which have been joined up by the lines of the sigil. The sigil of Floros, for instance, sometimes pronounced as Heres, is an adaptation of the seal of Horus, hence its shape, because it looks like something with wings, a bit like an eagle-type creature. But it's still made from this kind of like straightforward stick-figure kind of appearance. But there's still circles at various parts. Those circles, some people say, come from the various numerical points which would have a certain meaning ascribed to that spirit. That's another method you could use when you're creating the sigil of the spirits. When you're doing the ritual work, you summon it from wherever. You can use the chaos sphere or whatever, but it's good psychologically to use something like the triangle shape, like the chaos sphere, somewhere where the spirit will go and will not be able to walk out of, because you've got signs and symbols around it that is terrifying the spirit to stay where it is. You've got to give it the mentality to be terrified of, I don't know, the word tetragrammaton or whatever it is else it is you're writing around it, and to understand your language. Now, I never do demon work at home in my own house. Why? Because I'm an insomniac, I stay up late at night, I get bad dreams anyway. Why would I want to make myself even more paranoid if I'm perpetually sleep-starved, okay? So I don't do it at home. I do it either in an open space, or I would do it astrally, namely in a world in which I visualize in a very deep state of meditation, but I would imagine myself being somewhere else. So I would essentially be in part a remote viewing, which is like a soft form of astral projection, to another location where I would be then doing the actual work. Ideally a location that I would know. I would make sure if I'm doing it in my visualization, I've got symbols that I'm wearing on my chest and on my clothes which are there to protect me, alright? Which is just very similar to the method outlined in the Lesser Key of Solomon. I do not see the point in sacrificing any animals or even your own blood or anyone else's blood, or using sexual juices, because that can give you hang-ups, okay? You don't need to do that. But the idea is you're summoning this spirit and you're creating it. And it is a work of intense imagination in a prayerful, reverent state, but you're using the idea of inflaming yourself with prayer, so you become this bright, shining figure which can terrify that spirit, so you can make it do what you want. That's the way in which it's an aggressive discipline. Do not sell yourself to any spirits. That's just a little tip. I have not tried it, nor am I going to. Alright? However, there's various reports of different people who have basically said it doesn't work. Or if it does work, you're enslaved to the spirit concept, and you've got to carry on doing what the spirit says for the rest of your life, which is not necessarily a good thing. Anyway, good fortune, God bless, and happy ritual magic.